to A Well-Designed Business. My name is LuAnn, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company Window Works from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to another episode of A Well-Designed Business. Today is another in the series of the husband and wife teams that you have requested that I cover. My guests today are Jenny and Greg Madden of Jenny Madden Design right here in Hoboken, New Jersey. And I'm just going to say right off the bat, two things. You're probably going to feel a bit envious as you hear Jenny and Greg discuss their firm, their working relationships, and the goals they have for themselves. The second thing is the interview is packed with valuable insights on how to know if it's time to take on an operations manager, how to evaluate if you can afford it, and the results that come when you do place someone in this role. These two really have it together. And as you'll learn, I am honored to be part of their vendor team. So I can tell you for certain they are the real deal. This isn't putting a good face on things and behind closed doors it's different. They are truly genuine. So yes, it's hard not to feel a tiny bit jealous of these two, but rather than that, be happy for them. Be thankful that they came on to share their experience with you and pick some of the things out today that you can emulate so that your business will be the better for it. And a twist on their story is that Jenny Madden Design was in business for 7 full years before Greg joined the firm. This adds a layer of complexity that they have handled quite skillfully. One more thing. I make a big point of complimenting Jenny and Greg on their About Us page. So I decided rather than give you the company bio here, I'd like you to have the chance to read it for yourself so you can see too how deftly it conveys Jenny's skill and expertise as a designer. It calls out to their ideal client and it expresses a we will handle your project efficiently with respect to budget, timeline, and the overall client experience. Please read it for yourself and see if you agree with me and see if maybe you learn something, a spark that inspires you to maybe redo your About You page. Another thing that is clear is that Greg has truly fine-tuned their operations and processes. Now, you might not have a Greg, and if you don't, you could rely on My Doma Studio. That's right, My Doma Studio is the interior design management tool designed exactly to help you streamline your processes, to help you to improve your efficiencies and help you to improve your client experience. Let My Doma Studio help you save time, be more organized, and be more profitable in the process of doing it. Go to mydomastudio.com/awelldesignedbusiness, and Sarah, Marco, and Tanya will show you how you can utilize My Doma Studio to transform the way you do business. Now, I'm very happy to introduce you to Jenny and Greg Madden. Hi, Jenny. Hi, Greg. Thanks so much for being on A Well-Designed Business with me today.
Hi, LuAnn. We're so excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you, LuAnn.
So this is a special treat for me because, we know each other. I have the lovely, lovely, lovely privilege of being your window treatment vendor, and I have been getting to know you guys over the last 2 years through that relationship. So this is sort of fun.
Yes, it's so fun, and we are big fans of the podcast. We both listen all of the time, so it's a treat for us to, be longtime listeners, first-time callers here.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly, right. So, all right. So the funny thing is even though I feel like I know you, I still had to research you. I was like, well, what don't I know, And the first thing I want to say off the bat is your About Us page is awesome. Like, I love it.
LuAnn, that is so meaningful coming from you because I know you look at a lot of about pages.
I really do. And of course, I had not looked at your About Us page ever before, And what I loved about it, and I would love to encourage everyone listening, especially if you've been struggling with creating your About Us page, is to look at Jenny Madden Design About Us page because the things that you did in this, Jenny and Greg, are in a very in-your-face way. You really conveyed the level of experience that you bring to your firm. Like you talked about how that you work for top-tier architectural firms, and your degrees were in there. And I love that you and so from that standpoint right there, it wasn't like, and this, and this, and this. It was very conversational. So I was inferring like, oh, this lady knows her stuff. Okay. So that was what I was getting from it. And then the other thing is I love, like in the first two sentences, you talk budget. Love that. You know what I mean? And what I got out of it. So as a reader, like I'm a reader, I'm a potential consumer. What I got out of reading your About Us page was I got that you take budget seriously, that you're capable of having a conversation about budget and understanding that it's a real word and not a fake word. I love that you went right away, let me know that you are mid to high end in your specifications and the products and the vendors that you use. So if I am like just starting out and I'm basically one step above going to Target and Home Goods, I'm like, okay, Jenny's probably not my girl. You know what I mean? And it's in a nice way. You just tell me, don't bother calling, sweetie. Wait till you grow up and come back with some dollar bills. Okay. So, but it's not unattainable. So I feel like, okay, I've been married, or I'm on my own 4, 5, 6 years. It's our first house. It's our forever house. We've got some dollar bills, but you've told me that you're going to respect my budget, but I also know that I'm going to get quality and somebody who understands that I want to live in a nice way. And the other thing I understood very clearly, two other things I want to say that I understood very clearly was that in a very clear way, you expressed I could sense that you could manage a construction project, that it would not be over your head. I happen to know that to be the case from working with you, but I got it from the About Us page. And then the other thing that you were very smart to bring out is that you discussed that your team has mixed talents and they support, Steph and Margie support the design side, and that the operations is clearly locked down because we've got Greg doing that. And so whenever I see that on a website, I love that. So you guys did a great job.
That came across. Yeah. And credit goes to Greg. He tackled this and updating it after, we've listened to a lot of podcasts where you talk about the importance of it, looked back at our About page, and it wasn't telling, everyone what we wanted to say. And so he tackled that relatively recently, and I'm so glad that it's worked out.
Good for you, Greg. Well done. Yay. Because I really do. I say it all the time on the show when a new designer comes across my path, whether they pitch to be on the show or somebody recommends somebody, the first thing I do is go to the About Us page. It's literally my first stop. And even if the homepage doesn't open to that, it's like I glance at the homepage, but I go right to About Us. And if I don't get it from About Us, I'm like, if I've been referred or you've pitched me, then I have to dig a little further. And I'm like, well, maybe it's just not such a great About Us page. Maybe there's something else here. But if I find you on Instagram or something, it's just me, maybe I might pitch you. If the About Us page doesn't talk to me, I'm next out of the lane, like next one, moving on. So I really, really, really just wanted to compliment you on that. And it was just so funny because,
You know me already.
Yes, I know you, and I thought, wow, she really does. Well, Greg really does have the thumb, the pulse on this, what you're about, and so I thought it was awesome. So yay.
Thanks.
Yep.
Thanks for teaching me how important it is.
Yes, definitely. So, and so that's the thing, Jenny. I mean, I think that you guys are here. I said it in introduction, another in the ongoing random series, not in a set time zone here, time set thing here, but the husband and wife teams. So, we're going to talk about all of that. But your firm does do everything from redesign to, from gut renovation to building and all of that. And so, you've got a few years in, you're like 8 or 9 years in business now, plus your other degree. So this is, I love this sweet spot of this level of experience, because in my experience on the podcast the last 2.5 years, it's this 8 to 15 year mark where your information is that perfect mix of aspirational but reachable. Right? So when we talk to like the Barclay Buteras and the Candace Olsons and the Shay McGee's, it's awesome and it's exciting and it's fun because these are iconic people in our industry, but it's almost like, yeah, I don't know how I could do that. Right? Like maybe one day.
Well, I hope other designers listening can relate to us.
Yes.
And we're happy to be contributing to the shared knowledge that, your podcast is bringing. And obviously it's helped us from the about page to other aspects of our business. So we're happy to share what we can.
Yeah. So do we want to start out with the husband and wife thing? Do we want to start about, where would you like to start on that discussion? Would you like to start in the day-to-day, the managing of the personal and the business relationship, or do you want to go back and rewind to actually making the decision to go in together? How do you want to start it, you two?
Sure. So I'll just, a little bit about the relationship. We'll get some kind of tips out of the way if anyone else is considering working with their spouse.
Okay.
Things that we've experienced have been important qualities. So you've talked about this too, LuAnn, with you and Vin having separate and defined responsibilities and allowing each other autonomy so that, no one's being micromanaged, but still having enough mutual respect that you can give genuine and non-emotional feedback if you disagree with one another, So I think those are definitely aspects of the husband and wife relationship that are important at home and carry through if you're going to work together. But yeah, so just to give a little background to the listeners, up until about 7 months ago, Greg was working full-time for a large bank in New York, and he was on the operations side in financial services world. He was not at Jenny Madden Design. And so we were about 7 years into Jenny Madden Design business, and this decision really came to the forefront of our family about whether or not he should leave his job and come on board to join what would become a family business. So we thought we might talk a little bit about that, and it might be relevant for anyone else who's thinking about embarking on that.
I definitely think that that's a valuable part of the conversation because, okay, and so it's not like you're working at a deli. It sounds like you had a pretty good job that probably brought in a pretty stable income. And now it's not only the navigation of the two of you being in business together. So I'm seeing 3 possibilities of conflict. So number 1 is the insecurity of leaving probably a well-paying, secure job, and your now family is completely dependent on one basket for its income, right? So that's one area of conflict, right? Then I feel like the second area of conflict is actually truly just like, are we going to be able to work and live together? And then the third area of conflict that I see potentially is, unlike many of us who start out a family business together. You've got Jenny running this ship for 7 years, and there's got to be some shift in, worries and conflict there when her equal in life comes into a situation where she's been the head honcho, right?
Definitely.
So which of those three conflicts do we want to start with?
We've hit on all three of those for sure.
So should we start with
on all of them.
Okay, so should we start with it seems to me the first one is the actual decision to leave a secure, well-paying position and put all the eggs in one basket. That had to be scary as all get out.
My gosh, absolutely. So it all came about really from two sides, the business side and the personal side. So the best thing for Jenny Madden Design at the time was to hire. We were busy. We wanted to take on projects that we didn't have time for. And of course, the next question is, well, who are we hiring? What's that role going to be? What do we really need? And I'm lucky enough to already have a great designer on staff full time with me and a freelance designer who helps out with CAD and presentations as needed. So in thinking about it, we really needed someone in an operations role who could take on the non-design related stuff that I was doing, so I could focus more on design and on clients. So that was, the ball started rolling there.
It's sort of like, and I wonder if I know any operations guys.
Right, and we talked a lot. So for years, for 8 or 9 years since Jenny's been doing the business, I have been, pitching in anywhere from, a few hours a week to, 20 plus hours a week, depending on capacity needs.
Oh.
So, I was already kind of in the business, and helping out here or there, but definitely, at a level where it was 7 p.m. after I got home from a long
free
day.
labor, let's be real, right?
Correct. So the question really was, all right, we know the type of role that Jenny's looking to hire for. We know that I'm a potential fit, but we also know that there are probably potentially less expensive or, more diversified type, routes we could take towards getting somebody in the door. Right. So it was definitely it wasn't a no-brainer. It wasn't we sit there, oh, I have operations experience. That's a no-brainer. Let's bring Greg in.
Right.
So
right. Yeah, no.
Right. So there was definitely a lot to go into it. And really one of the big things as part of the decision was that we really wanted to make sure that we were taking on additional client load, but also improving the business and improving the client experience along the way. So it wasn't just all right, let's get more headcount in so we can take on more capacity and then potentially risk, either diluting or watering down, what Jenny Madden Design's already bringing to the table. So we wanted to make sure that the type of hire was a high level, real contributor that was going to be able to, add value into the processes, systems, everything else that comes with a business like this, which is, as I've learned over the past few years, extremely complex and not necessarily, just finding some furniture to go into a room. There's a lot that goes into it.
He has a whole new appreciation for you, right?
Yeah.
It is definitely a whole new appreciation.
Yeah. No, it's crazy, right? It really is. The level of detail is mind-boggling, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another factor was Greg's feelings about his job at the time. He was at a very large firm.
Yeah, so I was working at one of the bigger banks, and I had been there in my role for about 7 or 8 years. So I was ready to go somewhere smaller or make a change, to find something where I could take my experience. I'd gained a tremendous amount of kind of management systems, processes, operations experience along the way, and I was ready to really kind of take that and see how I could leverage that to have as big of an impact as possible. And when you put those two pieces that we talked about so far together, right, that really started to make this job change very intriguing for me.
Okay,
And
so what you're saying is that you were in a big environment, and personally, from your own professional level, you were itching to be more critical to a smaller operation, but to take all of the big ideas and the big concepts that you had learned and mastered to that operation.
Precisely.
Yeah. That is kind of perfect.
I went a little bit overboard in terms of the biggest bang in the world, but there's probably a middle ground somewhere.
Jenny's going, okay, we do not have 400,000 employees. We do not need this system.
So that's kind of like the business side of the decision. And then on the family side, I'm sure a lot of listeners can appreciate that I was taking on the majority of the home responsibilities because I had flexibility to make my own schedule. My office is 5 minutes away from my home. So, things were particularly chaotic in the mornings. Greg would leave at 7 a.m. and contractors and delivery trucks are calling me at 7:15 with questions, and I'm home changing a diaper. We have a 2.5-year-old, so things. If you're a working mom, the whole lean in philosophy really only works if you have a 50% partner at home. And how in the world could Greg be a 50% partner at home if he was out of the house from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. every day? Right. So I wanted to lean in. I was excited about the growth of my business over the first 5 or 6 years. I was excited about the potential. So really, Greg leaned in, and he's a total pioneer in the non-traditional work and family role now. And I'm really proud of that. And I wouldn't say it's a sacrifice for him because there are a lot of upsides, like the control that he has in the big picture decisions and the shape of the future of this company that excite him. That was a reason why, he left his other job, and the additional time that he now has making an impact on our son's life. But that doesn't mean that it was an easy decision for him, or that every day it's an easy decision for him to do this. And, I'm sure the conversations with his peers aren't always easy, but it just impresses me every day that he's, going against the grain in this career and family role.
I think it sounds, look, the thing about it is that I guess I'm a little tongue-tied on it because there are so many layers to this. When you say he has a conversation with his peers. So to your point, Greg, when you're saying I am really having an appreciation for the level of detail and the level of work that Jenny has been accomplishing and you guys are going on to accomplish together, it's sort of like you could see the stereotype of your banker buddies being like, you run your wife's interior design firm now? Like, what are you kidding me? Like, what is that? And it's like, buddy, you don't have the slightest idea of what it takes to be the operations person in a design firm like Jenny Madden Design that is well run. You know what I mean? And that is doing gut renos and is doing construction projects and is, it's a big deal, right?
Yeah, definitely. And, I think something like this requires a decent amount of self-confidence and, the ability to not really care what anyone else says or thinks. Right. So.
Well, and the joke will be on everybody else because like in 10 years from now, I can't even imagine the level of what you two will achieve. Watching the two of you work together, knowing the type of projects that Jenny is doing and how each project just seems to be getting better and better. I can't fathom what you're going to create together in 10 more years. It's going to be outstanding. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, 100. I totally believe that. And, the more I'm also getting to know Greg, it is so awesome for you, Jenny, because you had it together already. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I objectively understand that you had it together already, and he really is just adding that extra layer of depth that makes you be able to do what you do even more efficiently. So
Definitely.
It's pretty cool.
So we, I'm sure it was on one of your podcasts that I heard the concept of you're either working on the business or you're working in the business. And I was only working in the business, you know, and he is bringing that whole other layer to the table.
And the nice thing too is, I'm sure it sounds like, obviously it does sound so real, that your relationship before being in business together was probably very supportive, very communicative. I always have trouble with that word, whatever. Okay, y'all know what I'm trying to say. But the thing is, now when you want to bounce ideas off of him, you know, you don't have to start with, well, let me tell you the 15-hour backstory and then help me make a decision if I should invest in this or we should pivot that or do this. It's like, now you really are in it together, and the shorthand is there, and you can, if he comes to you with an idea for the business, you know it's because he understands it intimately, as opposed to, hey, Jenny, I thought you should do this with your design firm. And you're like, you have no idea. I can't do that.
Exactly. You know, I didn't need to hire someone of Greg's caliber just to continue to tread water, but I needed to hire him to really dig deep and understand the business to be able to tell me how we could improve it, you know, and that's what he is doing. But it also was kind of illuminating about the real need to have a business coach on board. So we don't right now, you know, I see how he is in some ways acting that way, where he's dug in and understanding the business, and then giving input about how to improve it. But if you don't have a Greg, it's opened my eyes to how valuable that would be, because an outside perspective is it's huge, right? When you're in the silo of your own brain, it's really hard to evaluate your processes, you know, your pricing, everything. So that's opened my eyes.
Well, and it's funny because before you completed your sentence, I was about to say something as you were about to say something, so I stopped and let you continue. And what's interesting is you went down the exact same point that I was going to bring up. I was thinking about how it's very similar when I said, oh, you know, he's in the business and he can make suggestions and blah, 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 and really help you grow and so forth like that. I was thinking about two past guests, Andrea Schumacher and Shay McGee. So Andrea Schumacher achieved this through hiring a business coach. So I'm sitting here with my sentence that I'm waiting to say, and you're like, it understands the value of having a business coach if you don't have a partner. And the thing is, I don't know if you remember the Andrea Schumacher show, but she was in her firm. I don't remember, it was 5-6 years, whatever it was. And two things were happening. She was not feeling like she was growing to that next level, number one. And the second thing was that she had the wind knocked out of her because she found out at tax time from her accountant that she owed something like $70,000 in her taxes with no warning. And it was like, are you kidding me? And so her wake-up call for that, and she hired, what she did was she went out and hired, I was about to say business coach, but she went out and hired somebody that was out of the industry, and I was thinking business coach because she was an outside business person, and hired her, brought her on as a partner or just as a high-level employee or whatever, but it was that exact same function. And I remember her saying, this salary, I almost to the effect of, I remember her saying the salary that this person wanted was more than she had made herself in the last year. Okay. And I remember her saying, but 1 year later, we, doubled our income in we're into our second year and we're going to double it again, whatever those numbers were, you know what I mean? But it was totally worth it. And the other one it reminds me of is Shay McGee. Shay and Sid McGee very much have this relationship, where he is constantly evaluating the operations and constantly evaluating the working on the business. And then you have Shay inside with the talent and the creativity and the expertise and the relatability to the world and so forth. So it's and the thing is, I just was in a webinar yesterday and people said, if you don't have somebody that's a partner, how do you get this, right? And so to your point, if you cannot, if you're not lucky like Andrea and find the person, or you're married to the person, I'm married to the person, it does have to almost come from a business coach. You do need that person on the outside looking in, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. You see the value. So, I mean, I think despite the stars sort of aligning and it seeming like maybe this is a good move for Greg to leave his job and come on board, this is the type of person I need, and it would be so great for our family, it still was so frightening. And so, at the time of where we were seriously considering it, we, of course, crunched a lot of numbers. The income in our family was going to immediately go down, and our expenses were going to immediately go up. We were going to have to start paying for healthcare ourselves, right? So we didn't sleep very well for a while there in the decision process. One of us would get up in the morning and be all sweaty and hadn't slept at all and say, "What? We can't do this.
This is ridiculous."
Thinking? Right. And then the other one would just give the sweaty one a big hug and say, "We can do this. We can do this." And so Greg can talk more to the number crunching that we did to kind of just make it more of a black and white. Well, here are going to be our parameters of this trial.
Well, Greg, and let me ask you a question to frame it before you answer, is because any firm that is at this moment, Jenny was at a moment, like she said, I'm growing, I'm taking on clients, my pipeline is full, I have the design support in order to execute the projects that are on my table and take on addition, but I know that I don't have the back end support because what she's doing is trying to be a business person for 12 hours a day, be a mommy for another 4 or 5 hours a day, and then be the operations person probably from 10 o'clock till 1 o'clock in the morning paying the bills, right? And so the thing is, this moment happens to every business that's on the right path, whether it happens to the business at the 2-year mark, the 6-year mark, the 7-year mark. And the decision is to take on the salary for the quality person that is going to be not just a numbers mover or rounder, but a person who helps you analyze and make strategic choices. So for every business, it's like affording that salary, but you guys have the double layer of not only will the business afford the salary, but how does the home afford the loss of your salary, which I'm sure Jenny didn't pay you as much as you are making. So it's a double whammy. So you could even talk to, when you talk to us now about your evaluation process for crunching the numbers, first on the side of if you're just going to hire an outside person and you're not going to lose the income on the inside, and then add that layer onto it as you go through the discussion, if you would.
Yeah, sure. So both of us, I think, are relatively risk averse, right? So we're not the type of people to just jump into something with reckless abandon and see how it works out. So we had quite a few spreadsheets, and we're doing budgets on our home side as well as our personal side, and running like best case scenario, worst case scenario, where do we land? And I think really, like, when you're talking about the potential of hiring an operations person that wouldn't be me, hiring somebody else, that salary as like a percentage of my salary, I think was high enough that the difference in the quality of life and kind of the other sides that we were talking about really kind of made that equation pretty easy to get to the answer that it was probably going to be me.
Okay.
So I think from that side of things, we, if we wanted to hire someone that was going to bring to the table something similar to kind of what I would be able to bring to the table, if not, better or close to it. I don't know what the exact number would be. We never really put a posting out there, but it costs a decent amount of money.
What you're saying is that salary is significant to begin with. To go into it, if you're listening and you want a person of quality, it's not a $40,000 a year job, is what you're saying.
Correct.
Expect to pay quality. So how did you, just before we get to you guys figuring it out, how you justified leaving your job? What would they look at, Greg, in their numbers to say, let's call it $85,000? I have no idea. Let's call it $85,000. What did you look at in Jenny's projects, in Jenny's pipeline, and in Jenny's business that you said this business can afford an $85,000 a year salary?
Right. So great question. So we have, I would say we really mapped everything out in terms of what is the pipeline, how many hours or how many, how much money are we expecting to come in over the next X amount of months from those projects? What's the design capacity that we currently have in the firm? Are we utilizing that to its fullest, or are we underutilized there? So we would map out, right? So Jenny can't necessarily be putting in 40 hours of design work every week, even in the future state. Okay. But we'd expect her to go from, like you were saying, maybe 10 hours of design, 15 hours of, operations or, prospective client meetings, whatever that might be, and 10 hours of being a mom or whatever that math works out. We want that ratio of Jenny's design work. We could say, all right, we expect that to potentially double.
Okay, so we can build Jenny out more hours, and that's a consideration when we think about earning more money.
Correct. And the same thing for our designer, right? There are certain things that we were able to map out. What could I take onto my plate if I'm here full time that would free up time for Steph, our lead designer, to do more design work, get projects through quicker, right? And we would be able to say, all right, so we could carve out 5 to 7 hours a week of work there.
Right. And she's more billable then too.
Correct.
And also the projects get done tighter, quicker, which always makes a project more profitable.
Correct.
Yeah, not only more profitable, but more satisfactory to the client.
Absolutely.
Too. So like Greg said before, we were looking to how is this new operations role going to not only let us do more, but have the client experience be better.
Right. Okay.
So that we elevate the next client that we get is of a even more ideal caliber.
Yep. So when you start doing that math, you build that out, you annualize it. The numbers were coming back favorably, in a favorable range where, like this might work. We might be able to do this and continue to live. And Jenny knows, like I talk to my siblings and Jenny about kind of financial stuff all the time to try to, make sure that I'm not, just working in a silo and having correct assumptions, but I'm generally fairly cautious in my, projections and how I operate. I don't, build in if the stock market does 20% a year for the next 10 years too, then everything works.
We'll be fine.
Not that type of model.
And on the fourth year, I'm going to win the lottery, so we don't have to worry about that year.
Right. So I think we had a very strong basis to make the decision off of, and I think, that is not easy, right? To build out to take a realistic, hard look at the business and how it's doing, and sometimes the news comes back, and you're looking at it and be like, that can't be right.
Right.
There have been some years where, you look at the numbers and you're, expecting it to be a great year, and when you look at it at the end of the year, it wasn't as good as it should have been. But I think the key that we really try to talk to each other about a lot is just we need to stare reality in the face and adjust based on, real numbers, hard data, not wishful thinking or, just hoping for the best. We want this to be like real decisions based on real numbers that will impact our lives for hopefully, a number of years going forward.
Right. So now you're at the point where you've put it on paper and it's going to work. You can see it. You can not only see that you can justify whatever salary you've decided that you would have, but you can justify walking away from the salary that you were earning. And it's go time. So you have it all on paper. It works. It's logical. Is it okay? It's so clear, and we are both, cautious people. We are both smart people. We've evaluated this. It is as plain as, the nose on your face. Is it like, okay, then go, or is it still like, but it's scary as all heck? Like, was it scary even after you? I guess what I'm saying is once you proved it logically and intellectually, were you both just like, okay, then, okay, we trust this, let's do it? Or was it still like, okay, everything points to go, but are we really going to do this? Oh, my goodness.
So it was still scary. I think that I wanted some sort of limit because I sort of considered it to be a test. Is this going to really work, even though we had run the numbers? So we established a a certain amount of our savings that we were willing to blow through in the course of this test. Because like I said, the income change, we didn't necessarily know that in month one, the income change from having an operations person on board was going to be positive for Jenny Madden Design. And we knew in month one that the family income change was going to go down, right? So we had to expect that even though it sounded good for a long-term decision, that in the immediate future, things were going to be tough. And so we established a certain amount of our savings that we were willing to go through as part of this and consider that to be an investment in the growth of the firm. And then I knew that if we hit that, we would stop.
Then he would go and get a job, go back and get a job.
Your resume's out. This is not going to work, right? And then if we weren't hitting that, we would look at, Greg came up with a plan to really look at the business in terms of 3-month pods, because our cash flow can be such that it's really hard to do a ton of analysis on 1 month at a time. That it made more sense to look at things in 3-month sets and not just quarterly, but so we'd look at January, February, March, and then February, March, April together. And then, do you know what I mean? And that allowed us to really, over the past 7 months, see how are we doing here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's helped. I think, to answer your question, it was still very scary to make the decision, even though we had a lot of spreadsheets in front of us. But once we made the decision, it was much easier, because the decision was done, and now it was just about doing the work, right? Making sure that it was the right decision.
And I love that you agreed on the amount of dollars that you would invest in this from your savings. And it was because it's like we say everything, right? Set clear agreements, set clear goals, make it easy to just say what I always say: what will you do? What won't you do? What we will do is we will try this. We have investigated it. We have analyzed it. It looks good on paper. We will try this. We will risk this amount of savings. When we get to this, we will make a difference. We will change. We will, not like one of you at 5 months or whatever point you're about to hit that running through the savings mark. It's not like, you could, because an agreement was made ahead of time, one of you isn't going to go, just give it another $30,000 of our savings because we're almost there. It's like, no, we made an agreement, right? Okay. So, and of course I can hear that you probably had a lot of discussion about the amount of money that was worthwhile to invest versus okay to walk away from if it was necessary, and that you could both live with. It's awesome. I love it. Okay.
Yeah, we didn't want to keep going back and forth on it every day. We were working in the business. It was all right. If we're going to do this, we're going to do it, and then just get to work. That's it.
I love it. And the thing is, typically, anytime you add an employee to a business, it should produce more revenue for that business, whether the employee is operations or sales, because if it's operations, it opens up the salesperson. Like you said, you're going to open up Jenny to be more billable. Guess what? That's opening up Jenny to be doing more sales, right? And so did you learn, you're 7 months into the newfound arrangement. Is it like, hey, and we're looking in the rearview mirror, this has totally busted up our business? Or you're like, look, let's be cautious. It's working. We can see it's working, but we're not doing the happy dance yet.
Yeah, I think it's, we're in line with kind of what our projections are. We're not crushing over them. We're not getting killed under them. I think it's, so far, I think things are on pace for what we were expecting and kind of hoping for. So,
but but you are feeling the difference in the process and the projects, right, Jenny? You're noticing that they're more efficient, the clients are happier, you're not changing diapers and talking to contractors at the same time.
Exactly.
Probably make less mistakes when you're not changing a diaper at the same time you're answering a question, right?
Exactly. There's a tremendous difference in what I feel like the client experience is in my mental health. There are many improvements that continue to be made that are really long-term improvements. And so while the immediate client experience is better every day, there are also these important steps that we're taking where he's working on the business that I know are going to have impacts for years.
I love it. So, okay, so tell me a little bit about I understand, look, the two of you are kind, intelligent people. So I'm not worried or thinking there was probably a lot of drama in the day-to-day. Like you said, you knew enough from listening to the show and from other places, I'm sure, to do that delineation of responsibilities and to have respect and give some level of autonomy to each person's area. So that I don't even think we need to take apart. But I do think tell me, was there any weirdness, Jenny, in that look, this has been your company for 7 years and you love this man. So when he comes into this, you want him to have the respect from you and from your vendors and from your employees. But at the same time, he really doesn't know one thumbnail that at this point, right? I mean, let's be serious. So there's a dynamic happening there, and it takes a lot of maturity, I think, on both of your parts to navigate that. Tell us a little bit about it.
So at the beginning, we would butt heads. We sit directly next to each other, and we would butt heads pretty regularly about things like how Greg was putting a spreadsheet together, and Greg would just turn to me and say, "Do you trust me?" Yeah. And I had to look. At first I would say, "Yes, but."
Yes, but. But that's not how I do it.
Right. You don't know about this and you don't know about that, and so I had to learn that sometimes it's better to let someone go through some trial and error on their own, and maybe not even trial and error, but trial and finding their own inefficiencies, maybe not errors, but finding their own way rather than telling someone exactly how to do something. And again, if I was telling him exactly how to do everything, which I did try to do at the beginning, he would lose that outsider's perspective that I talked about being so valuable, right? And so for him to take the time to dig into things on his own and then be able to say, well, I think this would be a better way to do X, Y, and Z. That was an adjustment I had to make that certainly I'm glad now he made me make.
Well, that's a tough thing because you know what? I have to say I have compassion for that because if you've been doing something a certain way for 7 years, it can't be assumed that it's not the right way to do it just because he has experience in, whatever it is, making Excel spreadsheets of your projects, right? Okay, so just because he has experience in doing it and has a perspective, it doesn't mean that it actually is the best way for the firm to do it. And at the same time, because he's never done it before a design firm actually doesn't mean it's not a better way for a design firm to do it. So that's a really tough little conundrum there. Right? Because, on one hand, it's like you said, an outsider coming in that his zone of genius is operations. It's sort of like you're a designer and you've been setting up these spreadsheets backwards. Like, you know what I mean? Or is it that you really don't realize that there's 14 other layers that need to go in the spreadsheet and you left them out? That's tough. That's very tough.
Yeah. No, definitely agreed. And I'm lucky that Jenny's very good at communicating. She's able to get her point across in a way that other people can understand it, and it's not just how some people, when you talk to them, they are just kind of spewing words at you. So
Right.
Jenny, we have good conversations around these things, and I mean, you really hit the nail on the head in terms of, being able to have those conversations so that we can meet in the middle.
Right.
Which we have over time figured out how to better have those conversations and better facilitate that meeting in the middle.
Yes.
It's not a slam dunk, right? It's not, you have to work towards that like every day, or else it goes away.
Right.
Pretty quick.
Well, and the truth is, Jenny is very analytical. Like, that's my observation of her, and she is a good communicator. So I think that the lesson in there is that if you're listening and you're taking on either a spouse or a new employee, and if you're explaining something to them that you want it done a certain way and they want to do it a different way, and your answer is, yeah, but I don't know why this way's better, that's you're not going to make a good point, right? And so I can see that there were probably times when Jenny would come back and say, this is why I think it should be this way, and these are the reasons. And then there might be times that you probably went, didn't get that, or great, Jen, but you're missing this part of it, and I think it would make it better, right? I mean,
right.
That's what I'm hearing.
I think you can't underestimate the importance of the language you use. So there's an adjustment in, here are the things I'm worried about. That instead of saying, do it this way, it was, here are the things I'm worried about. Now you make the right decision, knowing everything plus now what I am worried about, and do what's right.
I love that. So in other words, instead of saying you don't know this and you don't know what's going to go wrong and you don't know the pitfalls, you say, these are the things that I'm worried about slipping through the cracks. These are the things that I'm worrying about not making it to the project spreadsheet, or these are the things. So if you can tell me that you've got that covered, then yes, I'll go back to my desk and just draw pretty sofas.
Yep.
Right. Okay.
Yep. We hit that realization pretty early on, and that is a quantum leap in our working together.
Okay.
One of the things too on that front that I think was like super helpful from my side was I had 7 or 8 years of management experience myself, so I could really empathize with Jenny, who was kind of going from more of her own boss, right, doing whatever she wanted, to having someone else kind of come in and try to, tell her what she had to do or give suggestions.
Right.
And I had been in that, like, in her shoes many times, and I was able to really feel like, all right, so I understand what you're going through and how that can be either painful or uncomfortable, and try to help make that less uncomfortable with, things that I had learned along the way in my prior role. Right. So it definitely, like management experience on my side, and being able to kind of leverage some of that and bring that to the table to almost in my role manage up, that I think really helps smooth things out when you're hitting these kind of roadblocks.
That's terrific. Like, you had empathy and perspective is basically what you're saying for her role and your role, because you've been on both sides of it, it sounds like.
Exactly.
Interesting. And then how about, was there, I don't imagine there was, because I feel like employees are like our children. They follow our lead, but was there any nudge with Steph or Margie, or was everything just like, hey, so Greg's awesome, he's here, and this is fine now?
Yeah, I mean, we talked to Steph. We didn't necessarily make her part of this decision to bring Greg on.
Right.
We told her about the decision after it was made, and made it clear to her that it's really important to us that she feels very comfortable in the office, and that we hope that we're going to have the type of working relationship that is comfortable to be around, but that if at any point, there was additional tension, and maybe there might be at the very beginning, or
36 years later, get ready.
To please be understanding that, Greg and I are comfortable with each other. If there's a moment that feels tense, that as much as she could try to not let that get to her, right? That if Greg and I are going to get through this, either it's going to work or it's not going to work, and we'll take care of it. We'll take the action required. We didn't want it to stress her out, because I do think it's a unique dynamic in the office, right?
Yes.
And so thankfully, Steph is still here 7 months into this new working relationship we have, and hopefully, I think Greg brings a ton of levity to the office. I can be a little bit black and white, okay, you gotta get this and done. And Greg comes in and says, "How was your weekend?" I'm like, I didn't even think to ask how your weekend. So I think it brings a lot to the office in a very positive way.
That's so funny, because I'm the same way. I'm like, whatever, the weekend's over. That's yesterday's news. What are we doing today? Oh, that's hysterical. I love it. Well, I mean, and the thing is, it sounds like you took a lot of care to have a thoughtful conversation with her. And I don't know that, to the level that you did it or worried about it is, that's, at the very least, and you should have done that. I think it's nice that you did. But the difference is that she was in a role in an environment, and that's the difference, as opposed to if you come and you apply for a job at a firm where the husband and wife are two partners, are running it. You know what you're coming into, but you were changing the game plan on her. Exactly. But that it's still a little bit of like, whatever, this is the game plan. And I just don't know that it's possible to not ever have those moments of tension that are truly crossing into the husband-wife realm. It's you're human beings. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, you guys sound like you have a lot more together than Vin and I did in the beginning. Oh my goodness. we have it pretty well locked down now, but I mean, we always tell the story where one time we had an argument, and oh my goodness, it's got to go back 20 years. I don't even know if it's more than 20. It's probably even more than 20. I say 20 years for everything, and then I think about it, I'm like, it was like 30, But I have to say, I'm trying to think if Christy was born. So it's probably more like 28 years ago. But we were disagreed about something to the level that the argument went so out of control that one by one, each of the employees were leaving the office and going into the warehouse. And we are going for it. We are all in on this argument. And it's like, it was so funny. It probably went on 15, 20, 25 minutes. And we finally, done, we retreat to our own corners. And we're like, where is everybody? And they're all in the warehouse. Like, what do we do?
I know. And you're probably fine at that point, right? You through the argument and you're on the other side.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Vin and I always have fought fair. We always have fought fair, whether it's home or work. It's, there's no personal attached to it. There's no name calling attached to it. There's nothing that will sting after the argument is over. The argument is on the argument. You know what I mean? And so that makes it so that you can walk away from the argument,
Exactly.
I mean, that one, it probably took a half a day to walk away. Let's be serious. But, we're much older and calmer now, and that doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, I mean, we tried. There's some conversations that we say, all right, we'll talk about this later.
That's it. Yes.
Yeah,
let's just shelve that one for after, we're home and our little baby's asleep. So you guys are awesome. You really are. You really have it well thought out. I'm not surprised. I'm happy to know the whole backstory of the process of how you did this, but knowing the both of you and having worked with you, there wasn't one thing that you said that surprised me. You're both very thoughtful, intelligent, kind people, and that's where it all starts, right there. So good for you two.
Man, thank you so much.
Thanks, LuAnn.
Yeah, you guys are awesome. So I have to say, truly check out Jenny Madden Design website. It's awesome. The work is beautiful. Jenny Madden Design is also a guest featured designer on the Window Work site, along with Sandra Funk and Susie Chusett and a couple of others. And so when Nicole Heimer of Curio Electro, my girl there, I love her, builds the most amazing websites ever. She suggested that we feature some of the designers designers that we work with, and Jenny was right at the top of the list of my request, asking if they would like to be featured on our website. And so you can see her work in both spots. But you guys are awesome. Thank you so much for sharing this today.
Thank you so much, LuAnn. Thanks for doing this podcast. It's been really helpful for us. So hopefully this is helpful for some of the listeners.
I'm sure this one will be. Thank you.
Thanks, LuAnn.
Thank you.
All right, big takeaways. They knew their why, didn't they? Jenny and Greg had very clear reasons for bringing Greg into the firm. Jenny knew she wanted her business to grow. She knew it was growing, but she also wanted it to go to the next level. And she knows she needed the support both at home for their son, and she needed the support at the business. She said she needed someone who could come in and help her work on the business because she was so very busy working in the business. She knew it was time to bring in someone who would be a strategy person, someone who would streamline her firm so she could grow and yet maintain the quality experience she was committed to delivering to her clients. I mentioned the Andrea Schumacher interview in the conversation. Jenny said that Greg helped her look at her business differently. And if you want more of that kind of information and conversation, definitely do go listen to Andrea's episode. I loved the episode with Andrea so much that I played it originally. Episode 86 was the original airing of it, but then I replayed it this past year in 2017 at the Christmas and New Year's holidays, number 275, because it has a great message and it echoes exactly what Jenny and Greg went through. So now you know whether it's your life partner or a high-level team member that you are considering bringing into your firm, the process that Jenny and Greg went through in calculating their firm's readiness for this move is exactly the same. Okay, so if you know you need someone in your business, someone to be this person, to help you be the strategizer, to help you grow and work on your business, and you know it's going to be a high-level employee, whether it is your life partner or an outside person, go through the same steps that they did to make sure that you are prepared for this in your business. It's scary stuff. I know that it is. I know. It's scary to hire a bookkeeper, let alone somebody of this level, this caliber, this level of salary. But most things that are worthwhile are pretty darn scary. You know, and I understand. I've had people say, what do you do if you don't have, like I have Vin, Jenny had Greg, Andrea hired out, right? But still, what do you do if you don't have somebody that you can even talk to and help you strategize and figure out if you can hire that person, right? Well, you know, there's people like me. We're business coaches to help you do this. And if it's not me, God knows that I've introduced you to probably at least a half a dozen or more insanely talented and qualified business coaches that you can reach out to, any one of us, for a strategy session, for ongoing coaching, whatever it is. But don't struggle and don't, you know, tread water and don't keep running in a circle just because you're not sure how to see your way through it, because there's a lot of us around that are here to help you do exactly that. Okay. Alrighty. Now I know for a fact that Jenny has used her Cravat code for 10% off on one of her Cravat purchases because we talked about it. So don't forget AWBD10. It's AWBD10 at checkout for 10% off any one Cravat fabric wall covering or trim order. And of course, we have Camp Chroma as a show sponsor as well. Camp Chroma is the place for you to learn online on demand how to specify color confidently and accurately for your interior design projects. Go to campchroma.com and learn how you can be an expert color strategist today and really wow your clients, okay? Now, the big announcement. I am so very thrilled to tell you that the Power Talk Friday tour is beginning with the Las Vegas market. Yes, it is. All of the information is finally up on my website, LuAnnNigara.com, and go to the tab Attend a Live Event. And I have to tell you, this event is sponsored by 3 fabulous companies who are interested in supporting you and your interior design firm. First is Mydoma Studio. Second is Revel Woods. You you recently met John Dupre, of the owner of Revel Woods, just a couple of weeks ago on Power Talk Friday. And the third is the IWCE, the Window Coverings Expo that is coming up this March in Nashville. So, LuAnnNigara.com. Go to attend a live event page for all of the information on this outstanding opportunity. I hope you will consider joining us. And I have to ask you, what's your decision today? What are you going to decide to do? What are you going to take action on today? How are you going to decide to be excellent today? Thank you so much for joining me again today. This podcast is a production of WindowWorks, your resource for custom window treatments and awnings. To learn how we can help you on your next interior design project, go to www.windowworks-nj.com. And if you're interested in working with me on your business, either through masterminds or one-on-one coaching, or you want to know how to get my book, The Making of a Well-Designed Business, or you just want to know what's going on in the podcast land and where I'm going to be, all of that is found at LuAnnNigara.com. Thank you so much. Have an excellent day.